Behave yourself, Jaws. Imperial Topaz is the rarest color of topaz, exhibiting distinct golden orange, champagne, peach, to pink orange to pink hues. The color is often described as that of the setting sun. Imperial Topaz is generally not treated or enhanced. This is not the case with all topaz. For example, much of the blue topaz on the market has been irradiated and heat treated at 200 degrees Celsius for many hours to produce a very desirable strong blue color. Topaz is found in numerous locations around the globe, including the Ural Mountain in Russia, in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Germany, Italy, the Czech Republic, Norway, Sweden, Japan, Australia, Nigeria, Mexico, the United States, and Brazil, with Brazil currently having the largest known deposits of topaz in the world. Historians believe that the name topaz was derived from the Old Greek name for an island in the Red Sea, which was once called Topazios. The island of Topazios is now called Zabargad, and it was once also known as St. John's Island. In ancient times, around 300 BC, if you're a history buff, Topazios was famous for mining yellowish gemstones, which the ancients called topazion. Centuries later, the name was shortened to topaz. The odd thing is that topaz was not likely ever to have been found on Topazios Island. What they were calling topaz, and at one time pretty much any yellowish gemstone was called topaz, was in fact peridot, not topaz. Imperial Topaz gets its name from the time of the Tsars in Russia. At that time, the Ural Mountains of Russia were the largest producer of topaz, and all topaz with the unique color of Imperial Topaz were reserved for the Tsars and the Tsar families. One of the largest Imperial Topaz gemstones faceted to date is a 93.6 carat gemstone, which is at the Smithsonian Institute. However, when talking about topaz in general, boulder-sized topaz crystals have been found, as shown in this photo by Chip Clark. The faceted stone in this photo is called the American Golden Topaz, and it weighs in at 22,895.2 carats. It is one of the largest gemstones ever faceted. As my piece of Imperial Topaz rough is kind of square shaped, I believe I will lose the least amount of carat weight by cutting with some type of square design. The carat weight of the rough is 4.7 carats, and it measures about 9.8 millimeters, about square. I previously cut a square stone with a Squartuguese 2 design and loved the result, so I'll go with that design again. This design, the Squartuguese 2, was created by Marco Foltolini. Marco has created a large number of designs, and Marco says that this design has become his favorite square design for cutting garnets. Well, I agree with Marco in that the Squartuguese, great work, Marco. You can find all of Marco's designs at the website called gemologyproject.com. I discussed the various places where you can find free gem cutting designs in my two-part video called Reading a Gem Faceting Design. So the Gemology Project is another good source of diagrams. The problem is, right now, there's no one depository for all the thousands of great gem cutting designs that have been created over the years. So if you know of other sources of gem cutting diagrams, please add your sources in the comment of my Reading a Gem Faceting Design video. Maybe sometime in the future there will be a comprehensive listing in those comments that we could all use to find all the great diagrams out there. That would be awesome. In this design, I need to cut and polish 77 facets, or little mirrors, into the gemstone. That's a lot more facets than would be used in a more traditional square step design, which would only require 25 facets to be cut into the stone. So I'll be cutting 3 times the number of facets and hope that will get a lot more sparkle out of the stone than if I just cut a square step cut. This design is not overly complicated, and in my opinion, any new cutter who has just a few stones under his or her belt would have no difficulty with this design. So give it a try. Use a piece of modeling clay and my bottom dop to hold the Imperial Topaz in place, because the bottom part of the topaz is not flat. So we push the stone into the putty to make it the right angle that we want it at. We'll bring a much larger dop down on the top, and I'll show you why in just a minute. Push it into place. I line it up to where I would want to cut it. Now, I couldn't use this dop to cut it with because it's too big, and once I start cutting, I'd end up cutting on the dop. But as you can see, the dop is all the way around the stone. So I'm going to move the putty up, hold the stone in place. The stone is right where I want it. So now I carefully move this 6mm dop up and out of the way. Replace it with the 3mm dop that I'm going to use, and that will be right in the center of the stone because I centered it with the 6mm dop, and that's why I used the 6mm. So now when I push the 3mm dop down, it's right in the center of the stone. It would be too hard to do if I didn't do it that way. I'd be a little bit off. So now we get our two-part epoxy, disposable stirring stick, bamboo skewer, and a business card to mix the epoxy on. So now we just put equal amounts of the epoxy onto the business card, and we mix the two parts together, which starts the timing of, we have about a couple of minutes to put the epoxy on the stone. There's a little epoxy underneath the dop and all around it, little ways up, and gently push the dop into the stone, tighten it up, turn it over so the epoxy runs down the side of the dop a little bit, and for a few minutes until the epoxy starts to set. We just have to go back and forth. We don't want the epoxy running down the side of the stone. We just want it on the top of the stone. And then we'll be ready to cut the Imperial Topaz. So I'm going to cut the girdle. I'm going to use a Squartuguese design, cutting it with a 360 topper lap. We set the dial indicator at 90 degrees. We bring it down until the stone just touches the lap. You can see when it touches the lap because the indicator will go up. In this case, we want the lap to rotate this direction because we're going to be grinding the stone on this part of the lap. So you want the direction of the lap to go in the direction that the dop is pointed. So if the dop is pointed this way, you want the lap to go that way. When the dop is pointed this way, as in most of the time I'm cutting, you want the lap to go this way. Otherwise, the lap is hitting up against the stone, the face of the stone, and it's more likely to pop off the dop. So we're going to cut the preform, our Imperial Topaz, and then we're going to probably go to a 600 grit, then a 1200 grit crystal light, and then I will probably use the bat laps. I've been having a lot of luck with them from Gear Loose. I'll use probably the bat lap with 3000 diamond grit, switch to a 14,000 diamond grit, and polish it up with a 60,000 diamond grit. We've got a pretty good pre-polish, satisfied that we've got very little scratches left from our pre-polish. So now we're going to use the our Pandemonium 60,000 diamond grit on a bat lap, a different bat lap. You can't use the same bat lap with different grits of diamond. Don't do that, because some of the diamond is absorbed into the bat. The more you use it, the more it gets absorbed into the bat lap, and if you use a coarser diamond, you won't get the polish you need. Then I work it, and again, this is just the way I work the diamond into the bat lap. I'm not saying it's the only way or the best way, it's just the way I learned, and it works kind of evenly spread along the bat lap. So our first cut is going to be again at a 96 index for this particular gemstone design, 96. We're going to go every 6 teeth. So 96, 6, 12, 18, and so on. The angle is 43.25. Can't change the angle now that you've done all your cutting and pre-polishing at 43.25. You got to do your polish at 43.25. We just lower the mast down till it touches the bat lap, and again, I set a working area of about here, so you can move the mast forward and backwards. Anywhere around here is about right. The dop is pointed in this direction, so we want to make sure that our lap is going in a clockwise position. We lower the mast until our dial indicator shows that we've got contact with the bat, right there. Bring it back above 43.25, and I move the stone so that I'm sure I do not have contact with the lap until I'm ready to. So I turn on a very slow drip, and we're ready to polish our first facet and see how that turns out. All right, our Imperial Topaz, we're going to transfer to a 5mm cone-shaped dop, super glue it, and then remove the first dop, and then we'll be ready to cut the crown. So we put our cone dop in the bottom of our transfer jig, and the dop with the Imperial Topaz in the top. Then we tighten the bottom part, move the dop with the Imperial Topaz up, and use our Loctite 404 super glue. We put one drop in our cone dop and gently push down onto the super glue. Okay, we just removed our Imperial Topaz. It has a deep orange and pink color. We just removed the original top dop and are ready now to put our bottom dop into our faceting, Ultratech faceting machine, and we want to align it so that it's a square, so we want the bottom part of the square perfectly flat. So what we do is we first use our ceramic lap, which I don't use for much anymore. It's very hard to work with, but it is the most flattest lap that you can have. So it's perfectly flat, so it's good for aligning our stones when we move from the crown after we've cut the pavilion. So we put a flat piece of metal block here that's calibrated perfectly square. What I want to do is I've got to put my loop in here and check very carefully, and I want to make sure at 96-degree index that I'm perfectly flat. So it's easier when I've got everything well above the lap, above the plate. So that's where we want to line up our crown with, and that way our girdle will be flat and the crown will match the pavilion. And we check it at the 96, and I also check it at the another angle, the 24, just to make sure in case there's some glue or something, some of our adhesive stuck to the side of the stone, it'll give us a false reading of flat. So we're good to go, and we're ready to start our crown and cutting our Imperial Topaz. Okay, for our Imperial Topaz, we're all ready to go. I'm cutting the crown. So the first angle we're going to cut is 42 degrees. So we set our dial indicator have a hard stop at 42 degrees. Our index is set to 96. We're going to cut all four sides of a square, which is 96, 24, 48, and 72 on the index. I'm going to use a 1200 crystal light. I don't think I need to do preforming with a 320 diamond. I don't think I need to use the 600. Because there's just a small amount to use, I think that we can go straight to the 1200 and start preforming after that. So we'll see how that works out. Okay, what I want to do is keep cutting down until that top line comes down on the girdle, and we want the girdle to be about 0.3 millimeters wide. So the important thing is not to overcut. So I cut a little till I get close to 0.3 millimeters, then I'll Then I'll start checking it with the gauge. And then once I have it set, I'll do all 4 facets. Okay, just finished polishing the crown of our Imperial Topaz with our aluminum oxide Spectra lap that I get from Ultratech. These are disposable laps, has aluminum oxide on it. And our ceramic disc is a backing because it's the most flat disc you can find. That helps make sure our facets are good and flat. So now we remove the stone from the Ultratech, and we're going to cut the table. So we have to remove our brass set screw to get our table adapter to work. It won't slide over that. There's a nice little spot in the Ultratech where you can put the screw in and you won't lose it. The very top part of the stone, we want the dop to be at a 90-degree angle, straight up and down. So our dial indicator, we set that to 45 degrees. Put our ceramic disc in here because it's, again, perfectly flat. We just need a flat surface to make sure we're at 90 degrees. And we use our table adapter. It's going to slide on there, and it's at 90, and then the dop will slide up here, and it'll be at 90 degrees because 45 degrees there and a 45 degree adapter makes 90 degrees. And we use this to show that we're at 90 degrees. 45 degrees there and a 45 degree table angle from our table adapter is 90 degrees. So we tighten 2 set screws on our table adapter, 90 degrees. We put our dop in. I like it so just a little bit sticking out. That gives me enough underneath that I can use my finger to help steady it. And there we go. We're ready to cut our table. I'll start with the crystallite lap. Get a good drip of water. Then I stop it as I set up the table. I just lower the mast until the table touches, and when the dial indicator moves, that means the table is touching the stone. So just above 45 degrees. Now we've got step cuts all along, so what we want to do is make the step cuts the same distance, so come down a little bit more. We'll go to our 3000 diamond and then our 60,000 diamond, or we'll use the aluminum oxide. Okay, we ended up polishing the table with our aluminum oxide Spectra Ultra Lap, and the table's perfectly polished. So now we will take our Imperial garnet and put it in acetone to soak off the super glue, and then we'll weigh it, measure it, and send it off to BOPIE. Drop any comments or questions you have in the comments box, and I'm glad to answer them for you. Thank you.